It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brant Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them, so thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. Today, my guest is Chad Epperson. Chad is the owner and CEO of United Treating and Distribution, based in Muscle Shoals, Alabama. He began his lumber career in high school, working at a local lumber yard, and after graduating, he joined the Army and served his country for 2 years in Texas. He found his way back to the Shoals after that, got back into the lumber industry, and founded UTD in 2006. But he came to Christ in 1995, and both he and his wife Jeannie are active members of the Grace Life Church of the Shoals. And when not at work, he enjoys church, outdoors, and various activities with his sons, granddaughters, and his church family. Chad Epperson, welcome into the corner office.
Brad, I'm excited to be here with you, man. Thank you for your time.
It's fantastic. And I'm so excited to meet you, too. We're actually going to meet tomorrow. I know folks that will be listening to this will be a month or so in the past, but we've got our big Current 19 event coming up, and this is my first one. And gosh, you've been a C12 member for over 10 years, haven't you, Chad?
Yes, sir.
And how many of these national conferences have you attended?
The only one I didn't go to was the first one year that I was a member, so it's probably the fifth or sixth one I've been to.
Fantastic. Well, that's great to know. But let's start a little bit with your early life. I know we spoke a couple of weeks ago a little bit about that, but tell our audience, a little bit about your earlier years, where you grew up, and what your early family life was like.
Product of a single home. My mom and dad got divorced when I was about a year and a half.
Yeah.
We moved around a lot, mostly raised by my mother. Till sixth grade, moved at least once to 2 or 3 times a year.
Right. Did you see your dad much, or didn't have much of an influence on you?
I did. I saw him regularly. He was a good dad and spent time with us. Just did not live with him. And actually, when I was 16, I actually moved back in with my dad and finished high school in his house. So
yeah, awesome. So tell me about your parents. What did Dad do? What was his living?
Early years, he's been a sales guy. He started in the mobile home business, was in the car business, but most of my life he was in the lumber business as a lumber salesman and a lumber and a freight dispatcher for the lumber company.
So it runs in the genes a bit.
Yes, sir, that's right.
And we'll talk about United Treating Distribution a little bit later. And Mom, was she a stay-at-home, or did she have to work given the fact that she was a single mom raising you?
She worked.
What kind of work did she do?
General office work in the beginning. Matter of fact, one of my customers today, she was office manager for them back when I was in second or third grade. But she later went to work for the county government, was in the tax assessor, tax appraiser, and ended up, that's what she did as a career for herself after that.
Any brothers and sisters?
Yes, I have an older brother, Mike, who passed in 2006.
Oh, sorry to hear that.
That's okay. He's with the Lord, and a younger sister, Brandy, and a younger brother, Mark.
Oh, gosh, big brood. Cool. Yeah. And are any of your other siblings involved in the business today, or are they on their own separate paths?
No, they're on their own separate paths.
Okay, all right.
I do have children in the business.
Yeah, right. Well, we hear about them a bit. But, very excited to learn more. Tell me some of the things, again, thinking about your parents, or maybe even some of the brothers and sisters. What were some of the inspirations you took from growing up? Any memories that you have, lessons learned, either from mom or dad or siblings?
Definitely. Of course, many, but just to keep it down, my mother, I remember I don't remember how old I was. I was middle school age. We lived in housing projects, government assistance for food and housing. And I remember my mother got an offered a promotion at work, and it was a good thing for her, but the raise was going to bring home less money than the government assistance that she was going to lose.
Oh my gosh.
So for her to take this raise, and we were extremely poor, and I mean, like, really poor. And I remember my mother said, this is the right thing to do. It's going to be tougher on us for now, but this is the path to move out of where we are. And that had a major impact on me to know courage. Courage, and to do the right thing and to always move forward. And
despite what the monetary consequences. Wow, what an amazing thing. How old were you at the time, Chad?
I was in middle school.
Wow, yeah. So that's a living memory. That's terrific. And did that play out for her? Was she able to advance in her career and then earn more eventually, get caught up?
She did. She actually ended up starting her own business.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, that led her to a skill and she didn't. It wasn't a big business. It was her and one or two others occasionally working for her. But she was able to make a living on her own after that.
Good for her. Yeah. Good for her. Well, that's great. Well, that's a terrific inspiration. What about Dad? Any memories from him in the early days? Obviously, the lumber business. Did he get you involved in that? Did you have some part-time work? And
I did. I had summer work and some work after school. He got me work doing manual labor in the plant. And
right.
I know when he helped me get an interview at a competitor of his. He got me an interview. And got the job, and my dad was always helpful to help me understand, because I got a job in sales to help me understand, how to sell lumber and how to, take care of customers. So he was a good customer service guy.
That's terrific. That's great. What about other inspirations? Were there other folks, maybe coaches at school or teachers or, maybe pastors? I know you came to the Lord a little later. Did you grow up in the church? Was that a part of your earlier life?
Yeah. My grandfather was a Baptist pastor. And I told you we moved a lot. We always moved back to my granddad's house. So he was kind of the constant in my life. And he was a poor guy, but he loved the Lord and was rich in loving his family. Fantastic. And I remember one time we needed to build a new chimney and fireplace for the house, and we literally would go to streams and pick up rocks and go to get sand off the side of the road. And we built this big old fireplace out of with our bare hands. And so he just had a good work ethic to him. And then my teacher, Mr. Champion, he was my electronics teacher in high school, and he believed in me, and I really loved that class, loved being mentored by him. So from a childhood standpoint, that would be a couple of my mentors.
Yeah, awesome. Now, you grew up in Alabama. When you were moving around, was it also within the state, or did you move outside?
For the most part, Mississippi, maybe Florida, maybe, but yes, sir.
And your parents both from that area as well? Is that kind of a generational location for your family?
It is. We grew up about 30 miles south where I'm at now.
Right. Terrific. You talked a little bit about school and your mentor there. Were you a good student?
I was not a great student. I was the kind of student that when I was in school, I listened, took notes, and from that I could make anywhere from A's to C's. I never did homework when I left school. Oh. I was gone from school, so I just that's kind of how I got by.
Yeah. And what were some of the outside things that you did? Obviously, you worked at lumber in the lumber business, but were there sports? Was there music, theater, other stuff that you got involved with as a kid?
There was not working. I worked delivering and preparing appliances. I worked at the lumber yard. I did a lot of yard work, cleaning cars, just whatever I could do to make some money as a teenager.
Well, you eventually started your own business, so we'll get to that in a bit. But what about entrepreneurial things? Did you, have the ubiquitous paper route? Did you do chores, mow the lawns around the neighborhood, that type of thing as well when you were younger?
Yeah, I did do the yards and did, like I said, car washing and things like that, for my own money.
Right. And as you got into high school and then, obviously progressed, and were you working at the lumber yard pretty much full time, or were there other jobs that you had as you were growing up?
No, like I said, it was side jobs, and then the appliance job that I had was my only job until I went and till I went into the Army.
Yeah, yeah. And that was right after high school, as I understand it.
Yes,
you
sir.
were down in Texas, right, for a while?
El Paso, Texas. Yes, sir.
Yeah, yeah. And did you do some service overseas, or were you pretty much at the base the whole time?
I did not go overseas. No, sir. I stayed stateside.
Yeah, well, thank you for your service. Did you look at the GI Bill and think about maybe going to college coming back, or was there the need to just get back to work?
Well, I actually went in the Army for college money because that was what was going to be my only option. And
Sure.
So got out of the Army. But while I was in the Army, I actually got married.
Right.
And so just went straight to work once I got out of the Army. And really, literally from the day I joined the Army or started in the Army, I've never had a single day that I didn't have a job. When I moved from one job, I was always going to another job. So
Yeah, yeah. Did you start having children right away with Jeannie?
No, we were married a few years before we started having children.
Yeah, yeah, terrific. Tell me about your Army years. What were those like, and what kind of responsibilities did you have, both in terms of people and leadership and on the job training?
Yeah, the Army was great for me. I really needed it. I kind of grew up on the streets and was really not
a little wild.
Yeah, I was. Yeah. You did not want your children hanging out with me. Put it that way. I wasn't
They would have been a bad influence on you, I think.
No, I'd been a bad influence on them. There's no doubt. But no, it really helped me. It gave me discipline, helped me understand, sacrifice. I was only in a short time, but I was a M1A1 tanker. I was able to do the beginning job, the driving job, and then the gunner job, which was there's 4 jobs on a tank. So I did excel pretty quickly through that and really, really loved that. That was a blast.
Did you leave as a corporal, sergeant? What was your
I was actually injured and as a PFC, and once I was at that point, I was no longer could be promoted.
Got it. So that was why you had the short stint.
Yeah, that's one of the reasons. Yes, sir.
Yeah, got it. Okay, cool. And then when you came right out of the service, then that's when you returned to the Shoals?
Well, I stayed in El Paso, Texas for just a little while, about a few months, selling cars. And then we moved home and started selling cars when I got home.
Got it. Where did you meet your wife?
High school. We were not really, we kind of dated here and there, but we really weren't a couple.
Friends.
More friends, that's right. Kissing friends. How about that? But we were friends. But when I was on my way from basic training to my permanent duty station, we caught back up and shortly later ended up getting married. And we've been married, it'll be 32 years in August.
Congratulations. And a couple of granddaughters from what I understand, and 3 children. Is that correct?
I've got 3 wonderful sons, 2 work in the business every day. And the third works in the summers. He's a junior in high school.
Right. Fantastic. So back to the Shoals, went to work in sales, from what I can tell, back in the industry. What motivated you to finally found UTD? Was that based on kind of an assessment of the opportunity? Did someone come along and say, hey, you're really good at this, go do it on your own? Tell me a little bit about your motivations of founding the company.
Yeah, I would like to take the credit and say that I had this smart, slick, grand plan. But, always, whatever I've done ever, I wanted to do it well. That's just the way I was built. And I used to tell my wife, this is too much. I'm just wore out. I'm going to quit and work at McDonald's. And I was kind of joking, and then we would joke and say, well, yeah, all I would do is I'd end up becoming shift manager and then store manager. And I would still take all the responsibilities, but make a lot less money. So, so I just really, I always wanted to honor the people I was working for and work hard. And the Lord just really opened the door up. Like I said, I didn't have this grand plan. He opened the door up, gave me an opportunity to, with some wonderful guys that helped me get started that I was working with. And they're a real blessing to me. And they, with the skills God gave me and opportunity people helped me with, started the business in 2006.
Well, you came to faith before that. So tell us a little bit about that story.
Yeah, I would say I like to tell people my bottom was on the top.
That happens to a lot of us.
Yeah, I thought the answer to life was to be happy, was to have a lot of money, be successful. Because I grew up, like I told you, very poor.
Right.
So I kind of had, if I could have be married, own a home, because nobody in my family hardly owned homes. Have my hot rod and have a motorcycle, then I had made it, And so I had my 2 sons, I had my house, I had my hot rod, I had my motorcycle, and I was just miserable, to be honest with you. And
this is the early mid-'90s, I take it, right?
That's right. It was. I got saved May of '95. So I started in the business in July 9th, 1990, selling lumber.
Right.
And
that's when you economically started doing better.
Correct.
I imagine. Yeah.
Exactly right. And so, I just found that everything that I thought would bring joy in life did not. And the Lord just brought me to the end of myself when I thought I was on top of the world. And like, as I say, the rest is history, and I'm His, and what a journey He's brought me on.
Now, was Jeannie a believer prior to that, or did you both come to Jesus about the same time?
Well, my wife was never a partier or any of that kind of stuff, but she had what she thought was a conversion at a young age. But my wife actually about 6, 7, 8 months ago came to know the Lord as her Lord and Savior. So
awesome.
Yeah. But so she's a wonderful bride.
Little longer burn on that one.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, fantastic. Great. Well, what was the actual event? Did you go to your grandfather's church? Was it, a Billy Graham revival, or what was the event back in May of '95?
Yeah, I'm still at the same church that the Lord saved me in. At the back of the time, they had what they called Friend Day, which was the first day of revival. And we had made a mistake and visited that church, because we would every once in a while go to a church, once a year or something. And
right.
We got
Christmas
on their
time or Easter.
Yeah, Easter. Yeah. We got on their visitation list. So they had my wife commit to come to church on Friend Day. She committed my 2 young sons that I wasn't going to go. Well, my wife wakes up the morning of Friend Day and sick, and says, "Honey, I committed those kids would be there. I told them they'd be there. Would you take them?" I'm like, "No." And then she's, I told you I wouldn't go. And so not only did she want me to take them to church, she wanted me to take them to Sunday school.
Oh my gosh. So he was working on her then, wasn't he?
Oh yeah. That's exactly right. So I went and I was in a guy's Sunday school class. He was a big guy. I thought believers were all perfect, and I knew I wasn't perfect. And I'm not saying they portrayed that, but that's the way I took believers.
Of course.
And this big old burly guy, I mean, like a man's man, talked real deep. And at the end of the class, I don't even know what the lesson was on. He just said, "Guys, if you go to work with me this week and follow me around, I will let you down. I'm not perfect, but there is one who is, Jesus Christ." And I had heard that, many times. My grandpa was a preacher.
Sure.
But the Lord had he just undone me right there. Wow. And so that day I give my life to the Lord.
On the spot.
On the spot, and got baptized, served Hallelujah. On staff at that church a couple of times.
And that's Grace Life, right?
Grace Life Church of the Shoals.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
Yeah. About 10 years later, you got that founded. So you still worked in that competing lumber yard, I guess we can call it now.
That's right.
What led you to then eventually found your own company?
I thought the Lord was leading me to do that, to earn money, to someday go off and do ministry and help fund ministry. Oh. And He certainly has done that. That's certainly been a part of it. But what He showed me early on, and C12 was a big part of that, was no, Chad, the business is a big part of your ministry. And the people, the lives, the customers, suppliers, the families that you get to touch every day. What an opportunity to honor God in the way you do business and to love on people in an uncommon way. And so that has been quite a journey.
Fabulous.
To learn that.
It's all His.
It's all His. Yeah. I like to tell people there's a verse that talks about that He uses the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. Right. And I'm certainly that picture.
You and me both, brother. Yeah. So you took a risk. You went out and started the company. Did you have seed money? Did you set stuff aside? Tell us a little bit about the process of getting UTD started.
Yeah, there's this. Now, once again, I had 2 guys, wonderful guys that I worked with that helped me get started in many ways. But there certainly is that day one that I tell my wife, what little bit we've earned in this world, I'm fixing to sign it all on the line. And we either make it. And I tell you, the mark of a good wife, here's what my wife told me. "I know you prayed about it. I know you love the Lord. I've lived in a trailer before. If we lose everything,
I can go back there again.
I go back there again. I'm behind you."
Fantastic.
And, so,
fantastic. That's all you needed to hear.
That's all I needed to hear. Yes, sir.
And were you profitable right away? Were you able to get success pretty quickly, or were there some trying times over the last decade?
Well, there's always trying times. And yes.
Well, you started right before the big recession, so I can imagine those were kind of a couple of tough years, I imagine.
Yeah, the beginning of the housing decline started in 2006, which is when I started my business.
Yeah.
And then
I started mine in 2009, so I know exactly what it's like during that period. Yeah.
Yeah, we had was doing well. We were profitable day one. Like I had been in this business, so I had a customer base. I knew it, and we 2008 came. Lehman Brothers failed. I thought the phone company must have shut down too because the phones quit ringing. But the Lord gave me a peace in 2009, which was the first full year after it all happened.
Right.
Early on, the Lord gave me peace and said, Chad, I'm in control.
Don't
You're
worry
not in
about
control.
it.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
And I got with my team and I said, guys, recession's over for us. We're going to go out every day and do what we can do and trust the Lord. And we actually grew our market share considerably in 2009.
Fantastic.
While the rest of the industry was really going backwards. Yeah, and it wasn't anything we did. It's just him giving us the boldness to trust him and to quit worrying about everything and put our hand to the plow.
One day at a time and surrender all to him.
Yes, sir. It's his business anyway. So
Absolutely. So do you remember the first time you started managing people? Was it there at UTD or did you have some responsibility earlier in your career?
Oh, yeah. I've been a couple of different companies with, sales manager, different things like that. Yeah, early on, I kind of, I really wasn't trained to manage people. And I felt like if people didn't work the way I work, they must not have been working as hard as I was. And so I was too tough on people. And I have no problem being tough on people, but I was unfairly tough on people. And I didn't really understand, God has equipped everybody differently, has made everybody uniquely and wonderfully made.
They're not all like us.
No, and thank
God.
Thank God. Yeah. If this company had a bunch of Chads, we'd go off the rails in a heartbeat. So yeah, you know how it is. So.
I love it. So how long did it take you to learn that lesson?
Well, too long, the hard way, too long. I think I'm still learning it sometimes. I don't know that I can say I've fully learned it, but we're always growing.
It's a work in progress.
It's a work in progress.
Any other early management lessons from running people or maybe having bosses that were bad examples? You don't have to mention any names, but we've all had that boss where he said, "Boy, I'll never do that to someone else."
Yeah, you definitely have those times. I had one time a guy came in the sales meeting and told everyone that they didn't earn their pay and they shouldn't shouldn't be there, and did it really in a harsh way. And I actually love this guy. He's a good guy, but I did remember saying, that's not the way to do it.
That's pretty harsh.
Yeah. And I've been harsh myself. I said it, but when you're on the other side of it, you're like, this ain't very good. You know?
I don't want to do that. It didn't motivate me much.
It didn't. No, it didn't motivate me at all.
Yeah. And so today, kind of fast forward, how big's the company? I know we spoke a couple of weeks ago. You got 2 or 3 divisions. You're operating in about 20 states, from what I gathered. Give us a little synopsis of United Treat and Distribution.
Yeah, we're what I would call a suite of companies. It's all several companies that really kind of work together. It's a lumber company, trucking company, and freight brokers company, but all to serve one purpose. But we do have a couple of different departments, divisions that serve what we call industrial, which are manufacturers mostly of certain things that use lumber. And then we sell independent retail lumber yards all over the Southeast as well. And roughly 20 states. We have about 60 team members, full-time team members.
Across all 3 divisions?
Yes, sir, total. And then we do about a little under $40 million a year in sales right now.
Yeah, nice. And profitable every year since founding?
We've never lost money for the year.
Wow.
We certainly have had good years and not so good years, but never have lost money.
Congratulations. Well, how would you say your leadership styles evolved over time, Chad?
Like I said, learning to understand that, just as you learn more about your faith, understand that we're all in the body of Christ, and the hand is a very good hand, but a terrible foot, and that God made each part for a specific purpose, and learning to understand people, getting to know them and understand where they're strong and where they're weak, and help them shore up their weakness, but more than anything, help them celebrate and soar in their strengths and put people together in the right rows and the right places with the right motivators that help them succeed. And really, I like to win. Don't get me wrong, I like to make money, but I really love to see people grow.
It's very satisfying.
Yeah, I get my kicks out of that. And if people are doing that, the money will come, and you get to impact lives that way.
I really identify with that. I work in executive recruiting, and we've worked 10 years. And we found in 2009 when I started getting calls and the economy was coming back. And do you still do recruiting? I'd gone to another business that unfortunately didn't make it through the Great Recession. And I have to tell you, I still have people that are still in those same jobs I placed 9-10 years ago. I get in touch with them every year, if not more often. And, there's just a great intrinsic benefit of knowing that you've helped someone, you've been able to impact their lives and their careers, whether they work for you or in my case, in your case, or in my case, where I've placed them in a job that really has had a meaningful impact. It's tremendous peace in that satisfaction.
Yeah. And I operate with zero fear that if I invest in somebody and they leave, that's okay. I mean, not that I'm wanting that to happen. I'm not doing it for that to happen. Right. But if I really love people and I want to invest in people, ultimately I want what's best for them, and I want them to be in God's will. And if they're in God's will, that's where they needed to go.
Yeah.
And I can only be in God's will if I'm allowing other people around me to be in His will.
Amen. What do you look for the people you're making bets on? The people you're going to invest in?
I'm looking for somebody that's willing to invest in themselves. If you talk to anybody, they'll say, yeah, I want to grow, I want to do better and all that. But I really want to find out, what are you doing? Do you know your weaknesses? Do you know your strengths? What are you doing now to help you accentuate your strengths and to shore up your weaknesses? If they're not investing in themselves, God showed me early on, invest in the people that I've got ready to invest in themselves. And so that's kind of what I try to focus on.
That's a great philosophy. How do you get to that? What kind of questions do you ask? Do you observe them? I mean, sometimes a 1-hour interview or even if meeting them a couple of times, it's hard to kind of get below the surface.
Yeah, you just try to find out what's most important to them to accomplish. Ask them what they do well, don't do well. What would they do differently? What are they? You just ask them.
Their goals, what are they looking to achieve? And you want to hear things like improving themselves, right?
That's right. And I'm a direct guy. I feel like if you want to know something, just ask somebody, and, just ask them, be sincere. And normally the Spirit will testify in me and help me know and give me a sense of that too,
Yeah. How do you decide if it's time to micromanage someone or stay out of their sandbox?
I try my best to stay out of the sandbox. That's been a difficult journey because I used to do every job here almost. So I think I know everything, and I don't. But the Lord's blessed me with great leadership. And, I try to what makes the biggest impact, and where can I come alongside of one of my leaders and help them move forward is kind of the way I try to do. I try not to micromanage. I do sometimes. And normally I mess things up more when I do that.
Well, it's hard because you've probably done every job in the company.
That's right. And but I did every job in the company when it was a much different company, though.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
It's got more people, more processes, more more resources than it used to have as well.
Chad, talk to me a little bit about your thoughts on building a company culture. You founded UTD, you've got 60 employees, you're doing, close to 40 million in sales. That's a big operation. You span 20 states, you probably touch thousands of customers, both on the vendor side as well as on the selling side. And, if you had to kind of describe your company culture, how would you describe it?
I would say this. The one thing we talk about all the time here is we're actually not in the lumber business. We're not in the trucking business. We're in the people business. And we use the vehicle of lumber and trucking as a conduit to be a part of people's lives.
I like that.
And if we just serve people, that's each other, that's our families, that's community, our customers and suppliers and their families. If we just look for opportunities to serve them well, then things will be okay.
Was that part of your philosophy from the early days?
It has been for many years. Certainly, from my faith has come a big part of that, of understanding that it's not about me. It's about Him and His purposes.
Yeah. When you talked to us about starting the company, you said there was a lot of your competition that weren't making money. You obviously were profitable from day one. What would you attribute that to?
God's plan. He just, I'm a fairly simple guy. I work hard,
Right.
but that's not my biggest priority. My biggest priority is honoring him.
Right.
God owns everything.
Right.
Every customer, every asset I have. And he also wants me to be a good steward of that. And so if I feel like I'm stewarding his resources well, he's going to take care of things. Yeah. And I don't mean that if I go broke someday, he's not blessing me. Maybe that's his plan.
Right.
But what I seek each day, one of our core values is opportunity. And behind that, we put as the Lord provides. We want to go after opportunity that the Lord has set in our way. Ephesians 2:10 tells us that he has prepared beforehand the works for us to do. And I just want to get in on, Lord, what have you got for me to do? Because he will honor himself.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about your core values. What are some of the other ones?
Well, it's a acrostic for committed. It's customer service. It's opportunity, as I talked about, is to measure things, then to maximize things. That's to have integrity, it's to have teamwork. It's to have excellence, and it's to be dedicated, and to have thankfulness is the other two. To be thankful in every situation and seek to bless those in your path. Yeah. I've never had anything good or bad happen in my life that I couldn't look and say, Lord, there's something here to be thankful for.
Right. Fantastic. How does the Christian-owned and led business play out, day to day? Is that something that everybody's aware of? Is it something that, you're pretty upfront about when you hire new people? Is that something that's recognized in the community? Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we're very overt and open about who we are. Now, we don't require somebody to be a Christian to work here or do business with us, but right in our mission statement is we're committed to glorifying God while serving and treating our team members, customers, suppliers, and communities and families the way we want to be treated. Yeah. And that's based on the first and second greatest commandment, which is love the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul. And the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself,
Well, and that's a self-sorter, isn't it? My business has transformed since I come to C12, since I started coming to C12, which is about 18 months ago. And I've got about 20, almost 30% of my business now with C12 customers. And one of the things I ask my clients is, can we put that you're a faith-based or a Christian-owned and led business? And they said, absolutely. And, it acts as a really good filter, right?
Yeah,
because
that's right.
I share that with candidates and I'll talk about it. So, how do you feel about that? Is that something that you'd be comfortable in? You can't recruit against it, like you said, but people are very open. Say, oh, that doesn't bother me. Or I've worked with a family-owned business that was similar in the past. I've got a particular candidate right now that I'm looking for one of my C12 members, and she's currently working for a Hasidic Jew organization. And her response is, well, I've worked very well with them for the last 7 years. I don't think I'll have any problem working with your client. And, that was the right answer. So, well, that's good. Well, last couple of questions. You've been very generous with your time, and I appreciate that, Chad. You probably get involved in some interviewing. Do you, interview other folks other than the folks that you direct report to you in the organization? Do you meet everyone that comes in the door, or how do you kind of approach candidate interviews?
Certainly in the early years, I certainly interviewed everybody and hired everybody. I do have an HR department now who does that, but I do, I'm involved in what the process is, and what we first hire for is culture. And we're not just looking for somebody that's a fit for us. We're really looking for, are we a fit for you? And make sure it's a win-win for both parties.
Yeah, that's very important.
But I do meet with each new hire shortly after they start, follow up with them and find out how things are going and encourage them and get to know them.
So, let's say if you're maybe interviewing someone that's maybe down the food chain, maybe it's one of your direct reports, and, he or she would want you to have a look at this person because maybe they're going to be involved in a special project that's going to touch you. And let's just say you had a few minutes to interview them. What kind of questions would you ask? What would you focus in on?
I would ask them, what's the most important accomplishment they think they've ever done in work. I might ask them, what does servant leadership mean to them? How have they seen that in their career? Obviously, the person I'm interviewing, that may or may not be appropriate They might not have ever been in leadership, but I at least want to know how they feel about what servant leadership is, even if they've never been a servant leader. And I ask them, what kind of goals do you have over the next few years? Because somebody that don't have a goal at all is certainly not doing anything to get somewhere.
Right.
And so, I think that's important to have goals.
Get those insights. Yeah. Know what drives them and understand, their level of commitment to their improvement. Right.
That's right. That's
an important part. Great. Well, Chad Epperson, CEO of United Treating Distribution, thank you so much for your time. We've got one last question we always ask all our CEOs. And, what career and life advice would you give to someone who's, got his or her eyes on the corner office, or maybe wants to be an entrepreneur and, found their own company like you have done?
Just be willing to grow and invest in yourself. And I don't mean just in the business, but in all areas of your life. You're not going to end one day and say, I made CEO, so I made it. You're going to end with, how did I love the people around me?
Right.
How did I love my family? And if God's will is for you to be CEO, then that's what you want. I'll say this: I would not want this job if I know this wasn't what God called for me to do. And so where I want to be is where His will is. So just ask the Lord, what's His will for your life, and He'll guide you in the right place.
Amen. Chad Epperson, thank you so much for your time, and I'm looking forward to meeting you in Atlanta.
Hey, look forward to it, Brand. Thank you for everything, and thanks for everybody out there listening.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Hanley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.